Hey, thank you. Hi. Okay, well, before I start, I really want to verbalize my gratification to be chosen to do this podcast by area's most influential journalist, yourself and Bertram. So thank you so much. So as you have mentioned, my name is Gulay Toslu, and I have gained my Bachelor of Science from Youngstown State several years ago, and I started my career at Trumbull ICU right off school, and I worked there for a year, and then off from there, I went to New York State last year. I spent the whole year there and just came back about a couple of days ago. Uh, it's been a wild journey to say the least. I am pretty much a naive nurse. I started at Trumbull ICU just when I was learning to become a nurse. I was thrown at this pandemic, and luckily, we had a great team at Trumbull, a lot of support. The team was led by John, who was an awesome nurse. And, at that time, we didn't have the vaccine. So, we started off people coming in. And I just remember the nurses being very fearful. We didn't really know what to do except take care of the community. So, like I said, I worked there for a year, and then I know New York was in desperate dire of nurses. So I resigned at Trumbull and went to New York last year. Um, to say the least, I think I grew up really quick. I almost felt like a infant who learned to run before they could even walk. Um, like I said, when I started at Trumbull, without the vaccination, we were getting patients one at a time, a few at a time, and then we were just full house all of a sudden. And I remember coworkers just being very fearful. But nurses, I might be a little biased, but they're just true rock stars. I mean, I think I learned from the best. Even they were very fearful, they showed up to work every single day. You know, and as the days went on, we kind of had the knowledge as to how to take care of them and how to protect ourselves. But beginning of the pandemic, we were really short of PPEs. Um, I remember just using N95s for a few days consecutively. You know, sorry about that. Um, so it was very fearful. You work and then you come home and you have the fear of giving the virus to your loved ones, and then yes, and then you feel the fear of your loved ones being around you. you know yes, they were. And with a little mixture of joke, they would say, "Mom, like, stay away from me," because I work in the ICU. That's all I know what to do. So, but now that we have the vaccine, I went to New York, and there was more diversity of patients, and Uh, as far as diversity of different nationalities, different race, at Trumbull or around this area, it's more, the diversity is a lot less. Um, so what I have noticed when the pandemic first hit, we were seeing a lot of the elderly more, even though we had younger ones here and there. But with this last variant, what I have observed is the age group, um, it really dropped. Right before when I came, the ICU, more than half was full of age group between 30s and 50. And some of them did not have any known comorbidities. So, when you tell people about the pandemic and the virus, they say, well, it hits the elderly and they must have other comorbidities. Well, sometimes it's not true. There are people who seemingly look very healthy, yet, they are very, very sick. And, you know, unfortunately, they're unvaccinated and they end up, unfortunately, dying. Oh, so many on a daily. I think, yeah. So I think that is the most saddest part of this pandemic. Unfortunately, it's a pandemic, and hospitals statewide, they prohibit visitations to protect the community. And the only way we allowed visitation if we knew the patient was going to die. And sometimes the families didn't even want to be there because they were fearful. So yes, yes, quite a bit of, it's hard. People are scared for their own life. So yes, I had many patients that I actually held their hand while they were dying because they were alone. And like I said, nurses are rock stars in that sense too. They go in the room because we never want anybody to die alone. So the whole process, people come to the ICU alert and oriented. They start off with, a little bit of oxygen. And then as days go on, their oxygenation demands go high because their bodies is just giving up. So as the oxygenation demands go up, and we increase the oxygen, slowly but surely, they're in the route of getting intubated. Okay, and unfortunately, they sense that. To protect the confidentiality of my patients, of course, I can't disclose any names, but there's just so many that I remember, but there's few that I think I will remember a lifetime. I had a 41-year-old male who was the most gentleman that I have ever seen. And he came in and he was unfortunately unvaccinated. And, I think he was in the ICU for almost 3 months. So this process is not a short-term process. It takes, at least 2-3 months from the time the patient is actually admitted to the time that they actually die. Yes, yes, because you try to um, give them as much oxygen as possible. You try to avoid intubation, and inevitably they do get intubated because their body just give up. So I think when they're intubated, yeah. Once, I mean, few does. We have few success stories for sure, where we discharge few patients in large crowds. We clap for them, but mostly they unfortunately end up dying. So this 41-year-old truly broke my heart, because he was such a gentleman. He came in and he said to me, and he was actually admitted under me. And as the days went on, we tried to assure him that, we're taking good care of him, and hopefully things will be okay, that he's going to make it out. You try to give them the morale they need. And I said, we're going to clap for you when you are discharged. And he said to me, no, no, no. When I am discharged, I don't want anybody to clap for me. I'm going to clap for the healthcare workers. And unfortunately, the day that he was intubated, I held his hand, and I just remember him looking at me, those pair of eyes that I will never forget. Almost he knew that that was the last time that he looked. And a few weeks later, unfortunately, he died. I had a police officer, 39-year-old, who passed away, and we had to roll down his wife in a wheelchair to the ER because she couldn't handle it. She couldn't handle it. So, I know the media emphasizes on the workload of the healthcare providers, and that is true. We are exhausted. We are, but in my opinion, and this is my opinion, we are nurses, we are doctors, we are healthcare providers. This is what we are cut out to do. Just like Florence Nightingale's times. They did what they had to do. These are unprecedented times. What is heartbreaking for me is not, is the families that's left behind. Those orphans, the widows. These people get no closure. They get no closure, and it's it's just heartbreaking. And it's not. You know what? It takes so many days for you to accept the fact that this is what you do for a living. And some people you are able to save, and some you are not, unfortunately. The only comfort that I get is knowing the fact that I did everything in my power to make them comfortable, to do whatever I can, whatever science allowed. We did everything for them. That's my only comfort. I know that I did everything that I could have. Oh yeah, I dream about them. I dream about some patients. I really do dream about some patients. um the families, I mean, there were just so many families that deteriorated because of this pandemic. I had so many patients that just said, I wish I was vaccinated. I was stupid. They were really, really regretful. And I'm not in any authority to tell people what to do. I am always proactive about everyone being proactive on their own health. But when your decisions affect the health of others, maybe we have to put more forethought into into our decisions, you know. Um, Again, yeah, I'm not telling people what to do. It's their own health, but it's not your own health anymore. You're affecting other people. So the New York hospital that I worked for, which was a great institution, and they did a phenomenal job taking care of these patients. It was about, I would say, a 40 bed ICU. And I could easily tell you that out of the 40 beds, 37 patients were not vaccinated. Correct. I had one patient. Oh, yeah. I had one patient that was just so stubborn about the whole vaccine, and he said this whole pandemic thing is it's a lie. No such a thing exists, and he ended up dying, unfortunately. And I just remember telling him, these doctors, nurses, these healthcare providers, they get vaccinated. So do you think that we have no knowledge about this? People come in and say, my neighbor said this, my friend said this, and then you ask them to support it with evidence, with science, and they have nothing to say. We all have opinions, and they're valuable, but when it's health, we need science, we need evidence, not he said, she said. No, the wife was not vaccinated either, and until his last breath, she stood her ground and said, I will never get vaccinated. So I think that's mainly because they're just really stubborn, and they don't want to admit that their opinion is wrong. There are some people. Go ahead. It's because they heard this, they heard that. They fear the vaccine, and when you hear their reasoning, there is no science behind it. It's only because he said, she said. um it's kind of hard to believe, but people believe what they want to believe regardless of what you tell them. so what So what's mind blowing is to me, we are nurses, we are health, we're gonna take care of people regardless of what they think. If someone is sick, they're gonna go to hospitals, and we're gonna take care of them. It doesn't matter what they think. We are not biased. We don't judge people. This is what we do for a living. But you know, you have everybody telling you the vaccine for now, at least it's the only solution. This is the only cure that we have, and you don't believe that, which is fine. But then you get sick, and you come to the doctors, and you come to the nurses. So when we tell you to do something, you don't believe us, but when you get sick, you still come to us. You know what I mean? So where do we draw the line? So it's almost like taking away from people. The hospitals are clogged up right now. So it's almost like you're taking away from people who really need our care, and then versus these people who just are stubborn. And again, we will take care of them, but sometimes you get that compassion fatigue. Mhm. So, to me, maybe there's religion involved. I know that there's few people in my family who are educated or who are very strongly opinionated about the vaccine. And when you talk to them, maybe there's culture involved, maybe there's religion involved. And, with anything, people like to take sides. There's always two sides of the story, and which is fine. But again, when it's health, we have to confirm, we have to back that up with science. It can't be because that's what you think. Show me your evidence, and we could talk about it. But when you tell me my neighbor said, oh, because my friend said, you have nothing valuable. Uh, so we were mandated, luckily. Yes. And those who refused, unfortunately, were fired. Um, and their side of the story is, which is understandable. They said nurses worked pandemic before the vaccination. You didn't fire them then, so now they're refusing, and you're gonna fire them now. But we have a cure for it. This is the only thing that we have now. And again, it's not your own health, it's the health of others. And we do have patients who come in, COVID negative, and few days later they become positive. So you are able to transfer from person to person, from healthcare worker to a patient. So we can't risk the health of others. That's not what we do for a living, you know. I had, now that you mentioned, I had one patient who was in his early 50s who contracted COVID from his daughter. And I remember her coming in such a despair. She said, I will never forgive myself. I don't know how I would live with myself. Look, he was about 25. And yes, she was 25. And actually, the mother told me this. She said, my husband contracted the COVID from my daughter, and she is just depressed, crying at home. And when I finally had the chance to meet her, I tried to comfort her. That's all I could do. But her father ended up dying. So you have that side of the story too. How about someone dies because you were stubborn? Yes, she was vaccinated. Hmm. So you have those kinds of, you have all kinds of stories, and it's just heartbreaking. It's just really hard. Hmm. Um, Honestly, even if they did, I don't know. I never had time to utilize those services because we were so busy. So the only thing that I remember is we had a religious leader, like a pastor, that would come by um, to attend to the dying patients, and they would then ask us how we are doing, if we needed any kind of help, you know. Um, when you're dealing with the health of the community, sometimes you don't really have time to think about yourself. That's how busy you are, because you run from one code to another. Yeah, sometimes you don't take lunch breaks. You clock in at 7, and by the time you even notice, it's already time to go home. And I know I worked 15 days consecutively. I had coworkers who were doing their like 30th day without a day off. And I'm talking 12 hours shifts. So in the midst of all that, you don't really have time to think about your own health or your mental health, to say the least. I think now that I'm home for a couple of days, I'm reminiscing about my last 1 year and thinking about all the lives that we lost, all the families that just deteriorated, all those kids, the wives and the husbands. It's definitely hard. So we 12 hours a day. Yes. Oh, it's very uncomfortable. To say the least, the N95 is so tight that it would give me headache, you know. Really, yeah. Because you gown up to go into a patient's room, you take it down and then you put it on again when you go in. It's an ongoing process. So again, you have so many masks that I remember just having a headache every single day because it's so tight, you know. But it is what it is. I just want everybody to be healthy and um, just pray for their well-being and hope that this pandemic will disappear sometime soon. I think I have, like yourself, such a great circle of friends, that I vent, um, get together. I think that's a great resource, having that social network who understands you, and nurses, we get together and talk about our day, and I think that's a form of psychological relief, and knowing that this is what you do. Hmm? Yeah, yes, I mean, again, I'm a newer nurse compared to so many others, but nurses, I mean, doctors as well, but particularly nurses, because we spent the most time at bedside. They're just true heroes. They really are. Regardless. So, I in New York, I mainly worked in the COVID ICU, although I worked in the ER. I was a float nurse, so they really pulled me wherever they were short staffed. Worked in the regular ICU, the COVID ICU, the ER, the whole 9 yards, but mainly in the COVID ICU. So in the COVID ICU, we had more than half of travel nurses. They were all different places. Yeah, so we connected really well. And it's really hard for these nurses. They leave their families behind, like myself. You know, you rent an apartment and you feel lonely. You go home and there's no one to go to. But yet, they were doing the best that they can. True rock stars. True rock. I owe my mental health to Cindy. She's an amazing, amazing soul. I think she would have been a great nurse. She would have. Sir, oh, you would have been a great one, I tell you. I tell you, your patient would have been lucky, but you are a great journalist, so you know. I wouldn't use the word angry. Yeah, it's sadness. And not only for the dying patient, but those who they leave behind. Those that die, they die, and hopefully they go to a better place. But then you have people that did not get any closure. They're mad. The families are very upset. They're angry because you had this family member in the ICU for 2, 3 months that you haven't seen. Hopefully they had the chance to FaceTime. Yet the patient does not even have the energy to FaceTime. I mean, these patients are sick. They can't, their oxygen saturation drops by just lifting a hand. This is not an easy death. We try to make it as peaceful as possible, but it's not a peaceful death. It's very tired. They're very fatigued, to say the least. So I wouldn't say that we get angry. I don't, for sure. It's just heartbreaking, you know. And I can't say that they would have lived if they got the vaccine, but they would have had a really, really high chance. Just observing you don't even have to look at the statistics. Just from my observation working in the ICU, those who are vaccinated actually make it out. They get discharged, most of them, okay, if they don't have a really bad comorbidity. And those who are not vaccinated, most of them end up getting intubated and they die. And it's just as simple as that. I don't even have to look at the statistics. They're not, because you have these. So there's something called like the BiPAP. It's a big mask that goes over your face, and these patients are so fatigued, that they don't have the energy to talk. They simply don't have the energy. Again, I mean, just even very simple tasks exhausts them. That, and those who do make it out, few of them, they get the tracheostomy. Now that they haven't used their muscles for so long, it's almost like they become infants again. They learn to walk again. They learn to use those muscles again. They're discharged to a nursing home. It's not like Oh no, no, not by any means. No, it takes them months, if not years, and it probably won't be. They probably won't may not be same as they were ever. Probably not. So, no, I was undecided about what I should do. And I was so lucky that, as Cindy knows, I was the commencement speaker of my class. And I'm sorry, my next speech when I do my master's. So I was so lucky that I was actually graduating with someone whose uncle, I guess, was in the audience, and he was the manager of the ICU at that time, which I found out later. And he listened to my speech, and he apparently loved my speech, and he offered me the job. And at Trumbull, yes, I had quite a few job offers, and one of them was Trumbull ICU. So, and it was such an honor, they really did a great job taking care of these patients, and we had few success stories there too. Um, but like I said, even though you have few success stories, most of the time, unfortunately, these patients end up dying. Hmm. I think my love for people. I love people dearly. I really do. Doesn't matter what background you are, what color you are. I just love people, and I do believe that there are more good people in this world than bad, contrary to what most people think. And in the ICU, just seeing patients coming in really, really ill. And with the help of the nurses and the doctors, just seeing the progress of them getting better and then reuniting with their families is just priceless, you know. Um, and when thinking about my life, nothing came easy to me. I had to always work really hard for everything that I have. Cindy knows this very well. Um, and I think I see as kind of cut up for my personality. I don't like easy things. Not to say that other nursing types are easier, but ICU and in the ER, I would say it's just a little bit more intense, to say the least. Uh, they're more challenging, yes. They are more challenging. You have to think quick, you have to think critical, you have to act fast. Sometimes you don't have time to linger around. And I think my personality kind of suits that. I like challenge. Yeah, so when you see someone or talk to someone with an accent, you should really appreciate them because that means they speak a second language. I always say, yes. I know. I remember a friend who was really kind of embarrassed about his accent, and this is what I told him. I said, when someone says something to you, you tell them that you speak a second language. What other languages do you speak? You tell them. Yeah, so I was born in Turkey in 82, and my father, he's been here for, I would say, more than 40 years, and he applied for our citizenship, and we came to the States in 1994 when I was a young teenager, I believe 12. And then everybody has to, I guess, this is joke, no offense, but you make that mistake once in your lifetime. So I got married. uh, and no offense to any who are happily married, but I'm kind of against marriage type. um, yeah, yeah. And yeah, and then I got married, I had kids, and my priority was up. Like, I have three amazing kids. They are my biggest supporter. um my youngest is 17. My daughter, she's going to be 19 next month, and then my son will be 20. And they're amazing. From day one they have supported my education, and then me going to New York. My youngest one will always text me and ask about how my day went and if I'm okay. Mom, don't work too hard. They're just the sweetest kids. And my daughter, she's going to be a veterinarian. Hopefully she's my best friend, my biggest supporter, even though, yeah, Sydney's granddaughter. Even though her needs never end, but that's okay. I know. So I've been really lucky in that end. And then I always wanted to go back to university. I was dreaming about school because I just love learning. So I went back to university and became a nurse. I think I graduated 2019, YSU. Yeah, yeah. And then I applied for my master's with Kent State, and then the pandemic hit. So I paused that a little bit. I'm going to restart hopefully sometime. Um, but with YSU again, I'm going to transfer to YSU because that just has a special place in my heart. I love YSU to the highest level. It's a good institution for nursing. Yes, I'm back. Yes, actually, I am going to start Monday with Mercy Health. Yes, thank you. I signed a contract with them. I'm pretty excited. Um, so yeah, Monday I will restart the journey. Yeah, that's the Turkish hospitality. Turkish hospitality. Yeah. No, I actually love being a nurse. I think this was truly my calling. I know there's a lot of compassion fatigue, and there has been so many nurses. I actually had one nurse who I graduated with, the smartest girl, one of the best nurses that I know, just quit the profession altogether. And how local, yeah, yeah. There's so many of them. Um, can I blame them? No, it's really not cut out for everyone, and they've probably been a longer nurse than I have, so they're probably fatigued, exhausted a lot more than I am. But I put so much. I think at certain time when you have put so much effort into something, it's so valuable to you at this point that I just every day when I go to work, I love it. I never have a day where I wake up and say, "Oh my God, I have to go to work." I'm always, I love being a nurse. I really do. I think I will always continue to be a nurse. So I wanted to obtain my master's as a NP nurse practitioner, but mainly not to practice as a nurse practitioner, or not solely practice as a nurse practitioner. I also love teaching. So I was, when I was doing my bachelor's, I used to tutor in various different subjects, and I found that I really enjoyed that. So hopefully after I get my master's, I'll have the opportunity to teach few nursing classes, and maybe practice as an NP or continue as a nurse. What I have noticed during this pandemic is a lot of the nurse practitioners actually practiced as a nurse during the pandemic just to help out. Yeah. So because of the shortages, and I know a lot of nurses complain about the nurse to patient ratios, but I've seen firsthand how hospitals just really struggle finding the staff, despite the fact that they strive to get nurses from different states, and they're still short staffed. So I think as nurses, we kind of have to understand that these are unprecedented times, and kind of we have to help out the hospitals as well. I know it's not easy. As an ICU nurse, I had to take care of so many patients. I don't want to say any numbers, and it's not easy, but we kind of have to do what we have to do to take care of the community. You know. Mm-hmm. 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 That's hard to say. I would say education. Um, just putting it out there on the media. I think, when families see what COVID is doing to their own loved ones, then they get the point. But sometimes that's kind of too late. The damage has been done. So I would say education. Maybe putting the numbers out there, or just maybe a handful of healthcare providers just going into the communities and talking to people about the pandemic and showing them the numbers. I'm not sure. Um, yes. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. So I kind of give them examples from the history. I tell them that if we didn't have vaccines for various different diseases, there would be no humans on the earth. We probably would have all died by now. So when you have a pandemic and there is a vaccine for it, all you have to do is maybe just look at the history and how vaccines worked for various different disease processes. But if someone is very strongly opinionated, you could tell them all you want. If somebody doesn't want to hear it, they will not hear it. Because I mean, this is on media all the time, how vaccine works and how ICUs are full of people who are unvaccinated. If they don't want to hear it, they don't, and it's just unfortunate. Until it happens to them, and then most of them, they really do regret it. So I had one particular case where the wife actually has contact with me while I was in New York. She would call in. Um, and the patient was about in his 50s. He was discharged after, I would say, 2.5, 3 months with a tracheostomy. He was discharged to a nursing home. And so tracheostomy is after a patient is extubated off the ventilator. This hole placed the neck of the patient, and the breathing is done through that hole. Um, it can be, and it can be reversed depending on the situation. If the patient heals later on, it can be reversed, but in some cases, it's permanent. Yes. So she would call in and tell me the progress of her husband. And like I said earlier, he was learning to walk again. He was learning to use his arms again. So it's a very long, long process. It's not a quick fix at all. And I don't know that we have enough data to see um, how well people have done or how well they have recovered after the COVID. But I would assume that they're going to have some permanent damage. Yeah. Be careful. If you choose not to be vaccinated, at least try to stay at home. You know, follow the guidelines of CDC. I know we had so many holidays, and there's definitely a peak of COVID after holidays. I know that people want to get together. I understand, but this is not a normal time. Healthcare providers are tired. They are tired. They're losing compassion. Um, they're leaving profession. They are leaving profession, and that's very unfortunate because I know that every work is very special, but being a healthcare provider is indeed very special calling. Um, so if you choose to not get vaccinated, at least stay at home, stay away from people, wash your hands, wear a mask, at least do these little interventions. And hopefully this will be behind us. Hopefully by next year, I hope. Thank you. I expect you guys for dinner sometime. For having me. Thank you. Sure, sure. Thank you so much for having me. It was such an honor. Such an honor. Thank you. Yes. Oh, I love you, Mama. Take care. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Take care. Bye bye. Bye bye.